Welcome to Blackwood Hunting Society, folks. As tomorrow we are going for a hunt in the Amazon forest, I'd like to tell you boys a story about one of our old rangers and what he encountered during one of his hunting days in these woods. This happened on October 18, 2011. 3 days after a passenger plane vanished during a cyclone over the western Amazon, a fishing village along the Rio Purus reported seeing smoke far inside the jungle. A rescue team was assembled immediately. Civil aviation investigators, military personnel, Coast Guard search and rescue, 2 paramedics, firefighters, and 3 forest rangers. 14 people in all. One of those rangers was Daniel Vasquez. I knew Daniel. Solid tracker. Not the kind of man who scared easily. By the second day in the forest, everybody was already worn down. Their boots stayed soaked. Mosquitoes covered every patch of exposed skin. One soldier had developed trench foot from walking in wet socks. Another's GPS unit had died from moisture. The Amazon doesn't kill you quickly. It wears you down until you start making mistakes. Late that afternoon, they found wreckage, a seat, luggage, a torn section of wing hanging high in the canopy. Then they found the crash site. Bodies were everywhere, some still strapped to seats, others thrown into the undergrowth. No signs of survivors. Then Daniel found a footprint, small, bare. A child, fresh. The edges hadn't softened in the rain. The rescue operation changed immediately. Finding the survivor became the only priority. The child had moved south toward lower ground and water. Smart. A person can live several days in that forest if they stay near a water source and collect rainwater. Then Daniel noticed something else. Jaguar tracks, large male, following the child. The cat's prints never crossed hers, never approached, always 20 or 30 feet behind. At first, he assumed the Jaguar was stalking her. Anybody would. They followed the trail until sunset. Then they found a dead fer-de-lance snake. Fresh kill. The neck crushed. Jaguar bite marks. The child's footprints passed less than 6 feet from it. No sign she'd ever seen the snake. An hour later, they found another clue. A small shelter beneath a fallen tree. The child had slept there. Nearby lay a dead monkey, untouched. Jaguar hair clung to the bark. Deep claw marks covered the trunk above the shelter. The cat had been there for days, watching. Daniel didn't say it out loud, but he started wondering if the Jaguar wasn't hunting the child at all. That night, they made camp. Around midnight, they heard a little girl crying, far off in the trees. One of the paramedics grabbed a flashlight. Daniel stopped him, because the sound had come from uphill. The child's tracks had been heading toward the river all day. You don't ignore evidence for a voice in the dark. 10 minutes later, the crying came again. This time behind camp. Nobody slept much after that. Near dawn, Daniel heard footsteps. Slow, bare feet on wet leaves. He stepped outside the tent and shined his flashlight toward the trees. For a second, he saw 2 bare feet behind a trunk, adult-sized, pale, standing perfectly still. He lifted the light higher. Nothing. Nobody there. The footsteps stopped. At first light, they found fresh footprints circling camp. Small, barefoot prints, the child's, and larger ones. Adult. Neither set belonged to anyone in camp. Later, when they checked the passenger manifest, Daniel realized something that stayed with him for years. Those larger footprints were too big to belong to any passenger listed on the aircraft. Nobody could explain them. The team moved out. By noon, they passed the same kapok tree twice. Daniel knew because he'd marked it with his knife. The mark was still there. But the tree somehow stood on the opposite side of the trail. Even experienced rangers hate things they can't explain. The forest seemed wrong that day. No birds, no monkeys. Even the insects had gone quiet. Near evening, they finally reached a riverbank. And there she was, a little girl, maybe 8 years old, sitting beneath a tree. Her clothes were burned, her ankles swollen and infected. She was collecting rainwater in a leaf and drinking it. When the rescuers approached, she looked up and simply asked, "Did my mommy make it?" Nobody answered. Daniel looked around. The mud was covered with Jaguar tracks, dozens of them. The cat had circled the tree all night. Then he saw more signs: snake remains, jaguar hair, fresh scratch marks on nearby trees. The animal had been guarding that spot for several nights. The child never mentioned a jaguar. Maybe she never saw it. Maybe she slept through every visit. The paramedics cleaned her wounds and wrapped her ankle. As they prepared to leave, Daniel noticed something else. The larger barefoot tracks ended at the riverbank. They simply stopped. From that point on, only the jaguar's tracks remained. The trip back took 2 days. That first night, they heard movement outside camp, something walking slowly through the trees. Every time it came close, a low growl answered from the darkness. Then the footsteps moved away again. The jaguar was still there, following, watching, protecting. The next morning, one of the firefighters went to collect water from the river. He never came back. They found his canteen beside the bank. No blood, no tracks, nothing. They searched for 2 hours. No sign of him. That's the kind of thing that bothers old rangers. The absence of evidence. The child developed a fever that afternoon. Her ankle had become badly infected. They had to move faster. Rain started falling. By evening, they reached the flooded river. The current had doubled in strength. Crossing it would be dangerous. Staying meant spending another night in that forest. Daniel tied a rope between 2 trees. One by one, they started crossing. Halfway through, a large branch came rushing downstream. It struck the rope. The line snapped. 2 rescuers were swept away immediately. They vanished into the flood before anyone could reach them. Nobody saw them again. The remaining 11 made it across. The little girl woke as they rested on the riverbank. She looked back toward the jungle. Then she asked quietly, "Will the big cat come too?" Everyone turned toward her. Daniel knelt beside her. "You saw a jaguar?" She shook her head. "No." She looked confused. "I just thought I heard a cat purring whenever I was scared." Nobody spoke. Daniel looked across the river. The jaguar stood on the opposite bank, rain running off its coat. It wasn't looking at the rescuers. It was looking back into the trees, toward something deeper in the jungle. Then the animal slowly backed away. Not turned. Backed away. Predators don't do that often. The jaguar disappeared into the darkness. The survivors reached the village shortly before midnight. 11 people came out. 3 did not. 1 firefighter vanished while collecting water. 2 were taken by the flooded river. Search teams later recovered equipment. They never recovered bodies. The little girl survived. Years later, she remembered almost nothing. The crash, the rain, sleeping beside the river and hearing a cat purr whenever she felt afraid. That was all. Daniel retired a few years later. One winter night, sitting beside a fire much like this one, he told me something. He said, "Elias, I've spent my whole life studying predators, but that's the only time I ever saw one stand guard over a human child." He stared into the flames for a long while after saying that. Then he added one more thing. If a jaguar spent 3 nights protecting that little girl, I figure it saw something in those woods that frightened it more than hunger. Tomorrow, boys, stay within sight of each other. Listen to the animals. And if you ever find yourself in a place where even the predators don't want to stay, leave before dark.